Early in my career, I participated in the shiva of a 5-year-old girl who had been battling a disease for which there was no cure. I remember looking around the room and noticing her 7-year-old sister sitting in the corner clutching a picture of the two of them. So I slowly made my way through the crowd and sat beside her, and the little 7-year-old girl looked at me and she said, "Cantor Marcos, does God cry sometimes?" And I really wasn't quite sure what to answer. I was probably 20 at the time. It's not something that I'd ever thought about before, but the profundity of the moment struck me as an opportunity to learn from and with this young girl. And so I simply said, "I don't know. What do you think?" "Well," she said, "I think God is sad when people die and sad when people get hurt. And I think God cries when children die." And so today I'd like us to focus on this question: does God cry? And I invite us to explore today's Torah portion, Vayeira, for a potential answer. In Parshat Vayeira, we read of two seminal moments in biblical history. First, God endures the pain of witnessing God's people turn away from God, and God threatens to wipe out an entire city. And then we read about the Akedat the binding of Isaac, in which God instructs Abraham to ascend the mountain with his son and slaughter him as a sign of Abraham's loyalty to God. Abraham does as he is instructed. He climbs the mountain with Isaac. There he binds Isaac's hands and feet, and in dramatic fashion, the Torah details the event by saying, "Vayishlach Avraham et yado vayikach et hamacheled lishchot et beno." And Abraham stretched forth his hand, and he took the knife to slaughter his son. And at that moment, just before the knife meets Isaac's heart, an angel calls out, "Abraham, Abraham, Avraham, Avraham." And Abraham says, "Here I am, Hineni." I believe that God did cry that day. God cried with Abraham the tears of a parent whose child endures unimaginable stress. I imagine Isaac lying there on the altar, looking at his father's eyes, helpless, until an angel rescues him. Just as God cried that day, the day Isaac was spared, I believe God cries today for children being sacrificed every day around the world. Children whose lives are upended by sex trafficking, children who are sacrificed as part of plea deals with terrorist groups, children who are sold into slavery, children who are sacrificed by parents who are drug addicted and in need of saving. Just this week, we read that the president of Brazil, Jair Bolsonaro, could potentially face homicide charges for actively allowing children to die from COVID and from his failure to procure vaccinations and mitigate human suffering for his country. Earlier in the week, the Parkland shooter who killed 34 of God's children pleaded guilty. Children are being sacrificed, and where are our angels today? I want to suggest in very real terms that we, you, me, our elected officials, the people who swear an oath to protect and serve, we are the angels. It is not enough to rely on God. God left this world to us, and it is our responsibility to partner with God, to be ministering angels here on earth, carrying out the holy work that needs to be done, and we cannot let God cry alone. There's a video circulating around the internet. Perhaps you've seen it. It's heartbreaking. The video shows an autistic girl being pinned down by a police officer with his knee firmly pressed on her chest. The officer takes his hand as if to punch this young girl. Onlookers plead for him to stop, and so he does. And you can see him release the tension from his hand and drop it to his side. Is this what Isaac felt? Is this the trauma endured by the first Jewish child? How can it be that we haven't yet learned these lessons? How is it possible that in 2021, a grown man trained to protect and serve our children violates one of the most basic principles of human understanding? It is to us unthinkable, and yet it happens more often than we care to admit. So yes, God does cry. God cries tears of pain and suffering, and God also cries tears of joy when God witnesses heroic acts. acts of kindness, acts of extreme generosity and care for our fellow. So let our prayer be that we be given the strength to accept the role of a parent, even if we have no children of our own, parents of the universe. And when love seems like a fleeting proposition, we ask for the courage to remain steadfast in our pursuit of the unattainable, which is a perfect world where love flows like a river and our children know only laughter. May this be our prayer today and every day. And when our prayers seem to go unanswered, let that not be a deterrent, but a call to action, reminding us that God cries too, and that we must be the angels who wipe God's tears away. Shabbat Shalom.